I wanted to show the nuts and bolts of the cost breakdown. If you were wanting to launch your magazine, these are my numbers. This is how it is for me. And again, my goal was to try and get the printing cost down and the whole product cost down as well. And so the two working together, it helps me understand the business decision that I'm making.
Just watch how I do it. Let me show you what I do. Just watch how I do it. Yeah, this is how I do it. How I do it. Just watch me. Watch me how I do it. Hey!
Welcome back to another Minute Monday. I'm really excited about this one because, as I say, these Minute Mondays are really for me to focus on the business side of being an artist. I go through the cost per magazine breakdown, and I'm really working through the numbers to figure out how to make this scale, and is it possible? And so I use real numbers that I'm going to show you to help make decisions for the business. So the question I'm really trying to answer first off was, should I look at doing a offset printing? So right now I do on-demand printing. It's digital, but it looks really nice. It's a good finish, and I was able to create a magazine without any overhead. And so that was really important, and still have really good quality. And what I started looking into was, can I get to offset printing? Because I think $30 for a magazine is high. So I'm really trying to figure out how can I get that lower? And that's where things come in, because as you saw in some of my other stories on Instagram, I kind of shared that I've been trying to talk with local businesses to try and get the magazine stocked locally. And for that to be possible, for the cut that the business would take, I really have to get the production price down. And the biggest thing to be able to do that was getting the price of the magazine down. And for that, you have to invest in the quantity. You have to buy a lot up front. And so I was asking the question, kind of two main questions. Could I do offset printing to get that price down? And what number do I have to get for it to make sense for me from a business perspective, from an economic perspective? We're gonna jump in right now. This was just getting this out of my head and my way of walking through my business logic. So this is the breakdown of the current cost for my magazine. So every magazine that I print, when someone buys it, $18.59 goes to actually printing the magazine. The transaction fee for my website, $5, which was just an arbitrary number that I picked because it sounded like a good solid number. And there's no packaging material cost right now because it's on demand. And so when I order one, that I just have it shipped directly to them. It doesn't come to me, so I never see it after I proof it. So it's $25.55 for the cost of production, and then I charge $30 for magazine. And like I was saying, I feel like that's high, so I want to be able to get that price down. And this bottom part comes into play later on, but I wanted to explain, this is the current business model that I have. I set this up from the very beginning to be on demand so that I didn't have to have overhead, but it also made the price higher. And so now I'm at the point where I've been running this, released 5 magazines, and I'm trying to figure out, could I move the price? What does that mean? So I reached out to a really great offset printer that a lot of the indie magazines that I follow use for printing, and got some quotes. And this is where that investment cost comes in. So up front, it would be almost 10 grand that I would have to put it up. I would actually get 800 units. And so this is why I was like, for the $30, it's not even possible. So if you look at over here, this is for the 800 units. If you're interested, ask me in the comments about the details behind what went into the pricing for this because it's different papers between the second proposal and different quantities and everything. And I could give more of the details if anyone's interested. But this was just a out of the box break-even analysis template that Numbers gives you, and I just put in the numbers that I have to correlate to understand at what point do I get the return on investment. If I pay this $10,000 almost, when do I start making profit? And so per magazine, this is all set up still at that $30 price. You see here, I even actually moved this down to $2. It's currently $5. So that even makes it more difficult. But to get that price per magazine gets down, but it doesn't actually take out a lot of these other fees. And so that's when I started trying to say, okay, if I lowered this, I'm still making $11.90 per magazine, but that is not covering all of the costs. And so if you look at the analysis, the break even is 821, but this is for 800 units. And so I could sell all 800 and I would not make back the amount that I put in. And so, I just had to reach back and say, okay, this offset printing just isn't working for me right now, because if I were to order more, that's how you get the price down. So a lot of times if you stock in places, then they'll get bigger units, so you sell them 100, 200 magazines at a time. I don't have those numbers, so I went back, and again, here's the current set. So with Blurb that I use for printing right now, I do on demand. So I was looking into, okay, I can't do offset, but what if I were to do inventory with just the small amount that my current printer is able to do, and what would that look like? So first I want to explain an issue that I made right off the bat. So here are the numbers. If we pull it over, if I buy a bulk in 10, I get the discount. And so we're now lowering this printing price. And the interesting thing here is because then I'd have to start shipping them, then I need to get envelopes to put them in. And it would be $67.09 to order 10 of them. And it would take 8 magazines to break even, to make back the investment cost. And then after that, it would be profit. And this is where originally out of the box, right, I had 2 break evens. I did this one to just show, this is the on demand, so I don't pay anything for investment costs. And remember, I make $4.45 per magazine. So when I did the analysis chart, it's pretty simple. I went and I tried, so we're gonna look at this one right here. And I made the mistake of just adding this in, doing everything the same as this one, copying it over, and instead of here, I'd say, okay, the investment cost is $167. And so it was saying, when I was looking at this was a mistake I made, and everyone could probably see this clearly off the bat, but I'm like, man, I can make so much money. If I just invest and get orders of 10, then, if I could sell 100, I'd make $2,000. Like, this sounds great. And I was fooled in thinking like, oh, this is actually the best option because it's the lowest investment and the biggest gain. For 100 units, I can make $2,000, whereas these ones, I wasn't quite making that. I'm like, no brainer, I'm gonna start doing this. But then I was like, how do I get to these numbers? This doesn't make sense. If at 8, I break even, how am I getting to $2,000 here? And that's when I realized the mistake I made, which was that this chart isn't accounting for the pallet size, which is at I buy in groups of 10. So on the 11th one, I'm have to reinvest. And this doesn't account for that. So it's just saying it's that one initial investment up front, and then everything else is gain. And that's why it looks like it's so much money. And I'm like, yeah, I would like that. That's what I would like. But it doesn't work that way. I needed to change the formula to be able to account for the continual investment that would happen in specific increments. So now this chart, actually you can see, accounts for every 10 I'm gonna have to reinvest. And so I did the same for the, if I bought 20 units, I'd actually get a discount. So we'll look at the actual breakdown. So if I were to buy in 10, 20, and 50 out of the options to be able to, again, my objective was to decrease the printing cost. And these are the options that I currently have with the printer that I use. And you can see, to me, this was really fascinating that if I were to invest and get 10, I'm actually losing money because I would need to take care of the cost of signing them and shipping them out. Whereas right now in the on-demand, that's all happened by the printer. So I don't have any overhead. So with 10, I actually lose money and gain complexity with me having to physically go and print them and stuff them. I also have to point out this other thing. This was originally, remember in the first one, this was $5 and $30 for the magazine. So I'm making $4.25. And so I'm like, okay, I picked this number of $5 from every magazine goes to fighting human trafficking and getting people out of slavery. But making it very difficult to keep and sustain a business. And so I'm gonna be lowering that down to 2. And I also, like I mentioned before, I just feel like $30 is too much money for a magazine. Ideally, I'd love to get it. I think 18 is common for a good quality indie. I think 20 to 24 is like a perfect range. I would love to be at 24, but I can't make it really work and be worth all of the amount of effort that goes into it. And so where I'm sitting right now is I'm gonna reprice it to $28 for a magazine, and $2 of every magazine is gonna go to fighting human trafficking. That's gonna be the new numbers that we look at. And so when we go over, another reason to point out the decision that I'm making in coming back to here, ultimately final decision is I'm actually staying with the on-demand for right now, because it doesn't make sense to invest in overhead at this point for me, because I've only sold, in the last 6 years of doing this, I've only sold 20 magazines, and 9 of those were from the last volume. So I almost doubled, this year, the amount of sales from the previous. I don't have the demand to be able to invest in more than I currently am. So that's a simple cost breakdown of the magazines, and I wanted to kind of show the nuts and bolts of the cost breakdown. If you were wanting to launch your magazine, these are my numbers. This is how it is for me. It helps me understand the business decision that I'm making. This is just what I've done. It could be completely wrong, and it helped me though make a decision. And I'm sure that many of you are past this or on your own path. But for me, I just wanted to show how did I solve the problem to running the business. I'm trying to keep it, I'm trying to have a sustainable business and grow it. And part of that is understanding, if I change the price, what does that do to everything else? And being able to lay all that out and make those decisions in clarity is really important. So don't be afraid to ask yourself the hard questions and then work through it. And that's how I launched the magazine, and that's how I'm refining it, volume after volume. And I hope that helped. I was super excited to be able to show it because it's the reality for me running this little business. So thanks for joining. Thank you for taking an interest, and if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Instagram, DM me, comment below, reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation. And if you're running a business and you learn things, you see what I'm missing, let me know. I'm more than happy to recognize that I could be completely wrong and I could change in a minute. I'm not afraid of being wrong. I just want to learn and improve and move forward. All right, I'll see you in the next video.
Just watch how I do it. Let me show you what I do. What I do. I got to show you. Let me show you what I do. What I do. Just watch how I do it. Yeah, this is how I do it. How I do it. Just watch me. Watch me how I do it. Just watch how I do it.